The morning light filtered through the sheer curtains of my childhood bedroom, casting soft shadows across the hardwood floor. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the bridesmaid dress hanging on the closet door. The pale pink fabric seemed to mock me with its cheerful color, a stark contrast to the heaviness settling in my chest that my sister's wedding was tomorrow. Emma had dreamed of this day since we were children, playing dress-up in our mother's old gowns and pretending to walk down makeshift aisles in our backyard. Now, at 26, she was marrying David, her college sweetheart. Everything was perfect. Everything except for me. The conversation with my parents still echoed in my mind from 3 days ago. We had been sitting in the kitchen, the same kitchen, where Emma and I had shared countless meals and secrets over the years. The wedding invitations were spread across the mahogany table, each one carefully addressed in Emma's elegant handwriting. Sarah, my mother had begun, her voice gentle but firm. She folded her hands in her lap, a gesture I recognized from childhood conversations that never ended well. Your father and I have been talking. I looked up from the guest list I had been helping to organize. About what? My father cleared his throat, adjusting his reading glasses. About tomorrow, about the wedding. The air in the room seemed to grow thicker. What about it? We think, my mother paused, choosing her words carefully. We think it might be better. If you weren't there at the ceremony. The words hit me like a physical blow. I set down my pen and stared at them both. I don't understand. Emma's been through so much stress with the planning, my father explained, his voice apologetic but resolute. And with everything that happened last year, with the family tension, we just think it would be ... cleaner, less complicated. They were referring to the argument Emma and I had during Thanksgiving. It wasn't even that serious, a disagreement about our grandmother's inheritance that had escalated into harsh words and hurt feelings. We had barely spoken since then, exchanging only the necessary pleasantries when forced together at family gatherings. She doesn't want me there, I said quietly. It wasn't a question. My mother's silence was answer enough. The greatest gift you could give your sister, my father said, leaning forward, would be to disappear from our family forever. Let her have her perfect day without any complications. The words hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. Forever. They weren't just talking about the wedding. I had nodded slowly, feeling something inside me breaking apart like autumn leaves. I understand. That was 3 days ago. Now, sitting in my childhood room, surrounded by memories and the fading scent of my mother's lavender sachets, I made my decision. If they wanted me to disappear, I would disappear. I spent the next hour packing methodically. 28 years of life condensed into 2 suitcases and a handful of boxes. I wrapped my grandmother's china carefully, the pieces Emma and I had fought over, the ones that had started this whole mess. I would leave them for her. Maybe she would understand it as the peace offering I intended. The apartment downtown had been easy to find. The landlord, Mrs. Chun, was a kind woman in her 70s who asked few questions and accepted cash deposits. The space was small but bright, with large windows that faced east toward the rising sun. It felt like hope. Somehow, I drafted a letter to my family explaining my decision. I told them I loved them, that I wanted Emma to be happy, and that I would be starting fresh somewhere new. I didn't mention the pain or the feeling of being erased from my own family's story. Instead, I focused on wishing them well and asking them to remember me with kindness. The joint bank account took a few phone calls to freeze. It was the account my parents had insisted on keeping open from my college years. For emergencies, they had said. I left everything in it untouched. If they truly wanted me gone, I wouldn't take anything that tied me to them. By evening, my childhood room was empty except for the bridesmaid dress still hanging on the closet door. I left it there as a symbol of the sister I'd tried to be. and the daughter I could never quite manage to become. The drive to my new apartment was quiet. The city looked different at dusk, full of possibilities and anonymous strangers who didn't know my story or my failures. I felt lighter somehow, despite the ache in my chest. Mrs. Chen helped me carry my boxes upstairs. "Fresh starts are precious things," she said in her accented English. "Not everyone gets them." That night, I lay on an air mattress in my empty apartment, listening to the sounds of the city below. Somewhere across town, Emma was probably having her rehearsal dinner, surrounded by friends and family, laughing and celebrating. I wondered if anyone had noticed my absence yet, or if my empty chair had simply been removed without comment. The next morning, Emma's wedding day dawned clear and bright. I made coffee in my new kitchen and sat by the window, watching people walk by on the sidewalk below. Each person carried their own story, their own complicated relationships and family dynamics. I wasn't alone in my pain, I realized. I was just alone, and my specific version of it died around noon. My phone rang. Emma's name appeared on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Sarah." Her voice was small, uncertain. "Where are you?" "Mom said you were supposed to help with the flowers this morning." I closed my eyes. "I'm not coming to the wedding, Emma." Silence stretched between us like a gulf. "Why?" she whispered finally. "Because Mom and Dad asked me not to. Because they said the greatest gift I could give you was to disappear from the family forever." I heard her sharp intake of breath. "They said what?" "It's okay," I said quickly. "I understand. After our fight, after all the tension, I get it. This is your day. You should have it be perfect." "Sarah, no." Emma's voice cracked. "I never said I didn't want you there. I've been waiting for you. To call, to talk things through. I thought you were still angry with me." The revelation hit me like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. You want me there?" "Of course I want you there. You're my sister. You're supposed to be my maid of honor." She was crying now. "Mom and Dad said you didn't want to come, that you were still too upset about grandmother's things." We had been kept apart by good intentions and miscommunication. Our parents, trying to avoid conflict, had created a deeper wound than the one they were attempting to heal. "The wedding starts in 3 hours, Emma said. "Can you would you come?" I looked around my small apartment, at the boxes still packed and the life I had been prepared to build alone. Then I thought about Emma, about the little girl who used to practice wedding marches in our backyard, who had always assumed I would be standing beside her on her most important day. "I'll be there," I said. The drive back felt like traveling through time. When I arrived at the church, Emma was waiting outside in her wedding dress, radiant and nervous. She ran to me, careful not to wrinkle her gown, and we held each other, like we were children again. "I'm sorry," we both said at the same time, and then we laughed through our tears. The greatest gift hadn't been my absence. It had been finding our way back to each other, learning that love is stronger than pride, and that family is worth fighting for. As I took my place beside Emma at the altar, I realized that some disappearances are just detours on the path back home.